Righto, that sort of feels like we're starting to get somewhere again. So I've got some cloth tape, and this will be used to seal up the little bits and pieces of our underlay where we've sort of knocked it a little bit. But otherwise we're getting some progress. And I've got this piece of timber too to fit up there, because I sort of realised that this lintel is not flush at all. So I could put a couple of little packers, or I could put another bit of wood in. So I'm going to get some chisels. We're going to hammer that out to make it fit and nice and square. And same in this. It looks like they've done it on an angle on purpose for some goddamn reason. I suppose I could cut the edges of this and angle that. Well, but yeah, a bit more progress. And got some nails, so that's in now. So we'll get some plywood around on the other side. That'll be fine. So we've cut these sides so that it's 2.2 meters from one edge all the way down, and 180 from this point all the way down, by angling both sides. So hopefully that fits in nice and neat, but we'll see how that goes in a second. Meanwhile, Emma's putting some tape in some spots, so helping out. Sweet, so that's in, fits nice and snug, except it's also way too wide. This was the thinnest thing they could do. I think they said it was 19mm, but it's probably double that. That's coming out way too much. Too much to just plane as well, so I'm going to have to take it down and then rip all the way along it on the table saw, which is going to be real fun. Shit. So we've ripped down the length either side, and we've still got this whole chunk here. This particular bit of timber is a little bit wet, so we're going to have to let it dry before we actually put it in anyway. But that's unfortunate, because it means the saw isn't big enough for me to go the whole way through on the table saw down below. And I'm basically going to have to get the old hand saw out, I think, and just slim along it. So, joy. Meanwhile, Emma's getting a bit more firewood out of this couch, because something to do.
Stress relief.
This is taking forever, and I'm a lazy man, so it's time for my favourite tool, I reckon. That will work just nicely. So, saw saw worked, as you see by the dust, but it's just wet enough that it was all clumping up and stopping it from getting anywhere. I've actually made about the same amount of progress with the handsaw in about 5 minutes than I did with that in about 5 minutes, so unless I get a real wood blade, I might just stick with the handsaw. It's a little quieter. The tip on the table saw is actually bent in a little bit, so maybe it's doing extra work there as well, but it's hard going. You can probably hear by the breathing. So, can't wait till I have a workbench and we actually have a vise set up for this. But this is an absolute labour of love. There's no other reason to do this. Just so that we can make that bit of wall up there a little bit flat. Doesn't seem crazy worth it, but will be. It will be. So we'll do that, and then we'll nail it in. We'll get the planer, plan it up, and it'll look good from there. But trying to plane all of this down, that would be equally shit. So here we are. So today we are hanging some curtains, and we've got one up there now, looking good. Very, very simple. There's inside and outside brackets because they're extendable. You can adjust them to however long you want. I'm fastening these to the corners, and then the channel just simply slots in there. So we're going to have curtains, finally, in this room and in the lounge. So that's good. No nets underneath them yet. And the string that they came with to have them both draw across, that just didn't work out very well. A bit frustrating, so we've cut that out. And yeah, that's what we're up to. So we've got another lazy Sunday afternoon, and this is like day 3 of me just hand sawing this when I can be bothered, pretty much halfway now. But fuck, this is a mission. Woo! Bit of work. Came at it from both ends. It's still Yeah, it doesn't feel that dry. Oh well. What a mission. So just pre-drilling these couple of holes here, because I've tried putting one nail through this and obviously had that up here to line them up for the first bit, but yeah, this old Remu here is way too hard for one of these nails to drive all the way through. Could probably get some shorter nails too, but these are what we got to just put that one in. So this is my task, just quickly before we go walk around a house with my sister to try and help her decide whether or not to buy a very expensive thing. Cool. So nails are in, and we've got basically 2 at either end and then 2 lining up with each of these cripples. So we've got a punch here from my nana that I will drive these in a little deeper so I can plane it up and it look okay. G'day guys, finally getting back into it. I've had a whole bunch of stuff happen outside of the renovation, so I've been taking it easy, but we're back. So that's in, that's nice, that's all planed down, it's all nice and smooth. So I figure I'm going to start at this wall to try and get this leveling going on. And when this wall's done, we can put more of this paper in and just move on to the next step. So 2 things. I'm going to, you can sort of see that line there, I'm going to plane that down so this is the same thickness. And then slot it in this gap in the timber here, because this one that's sort of wobbling, I kind of want to nail that into this other stud so it doesn't. That's bowing out this way, and what you do with the string is grab a tape measure, and I've got just a nail with the string at either end, and I go, okay, that string is exactly at the 50 mark there, and then at this end it's also exactly at the 50 mark at this end. So all I've got to do is take my tape measure and put it up and go, well, is it on the 50? No, that's like 48 or so. That's say 46, and that's again 46 or so. So all of these walls here, sure, that's like 43. So if that one's 43, that means that it needs to recess back in, be pushed back in 7 millimeters for it to end up at the same level as my 2 corners. Because basically once your corners are straight, then you can go along the middle and see if that is too. So it means that most of this wall here is slightly buckling out like this, which means I'll basically be having to plane the middle of most of these, which is all the joy. So I'll do that, and then we'll check down below towards the bottom, and we'll check up a bit higher once I've planed the middle of these down and fix this, and that's what we'll do. But yeah, for now we'll plane that down and try and slot that in to pack it out just a little bit more. Yeah, so that's what we're up to as the next part of this project. So it's kind of fun, just trim the soft cut, and there's actually a nail going in that point. Tapped it in with a hammer, smashed it off, worked out alright. Packs it out anyway. So we'll take the string down. I've gone along and marked all of them. This one's out by 5. -2, I've put -2 because that's how much I want to take off. -5, -9, and I've just written this on the side here as well. -5. So that when I plane it and I remove that mark, that I can see that it's I've still got a reference. So one question I had was, you know, what's your tolerance? How many millimeters is too many? And from what I understand, most builders work to 1 millimeter tolerance. If it's 1 millimeter out, it's okay. Not perfect, obviously, but it's okay. If you're 2 millimeters out, that's when you want to start thinking of doing something. If you're more than 2, then that's you absolutely have to do something about that. Otherwise, you get the wave coming on. So a whole bunch of these are exactly 2. So that happens to be the maximum amount of millimeters I can plane off at a time. So if I just do 1 pass over the ones that say 2, we should be looking good. And I'll do a couple of passes for -5 and so on. And then once I've gone through and done them all, I'll put the string back up and just test it and test it and test it. And this is going to take forever. So I'll see you when I've done this wall. Shall we? Yes. We've got this nail in here, so make sure you also get your punches and hammer them away so you're not going to ruin the blade on that thing.